Well, hello and welcome to episode 16 of Tui Snider's Offbeat and Overlooked. This is a weekly streaming show where I interview a variety of experts about all sorts of things, including cemetery symbolism, historic cemeteries, the paranormal, forgotten history, folklore, ghosts, quirky travel sites, UFOs, basically all the offbeat and overlooked people, places, and things that tickle my fancy. And I have a very ticklish fancy, as you know, if you've seen this show before. Now, in case you are new here, let me see, do I have my slide showing? Yes, I do. I got to get all the way up here. In case you're new here, I am Tui Snider. I write books, I give talks, I do a lot of research, I make some videos here, and I just love sharing the fun stuff that I dig up and the interesting people that I meet. And I'm just having a really fun time with this show. Let me see who is here so far today. Oh, yay, some people. Well, Scott showed up a little bit early, so hey, howdy, Scott. Thanks for coming. Wade, I don't know where in the world Wade is right now. You're all over the place. You were just down in Galveston not that long ago, I think. I saw in your shorts. Traveling Wade, Wayside Wade. Everyone go check out his channel. It's really great. And Charisse is here. Howdy, Charisse. It's really nice to see you. How is it down at San Antonio? It is raining like crazy up here in North Texas. Oh, it was old footage. You faked me out. You weren't really down in Galveston. I do that too because I posted something from Venice and I haven't been there in quite a while. I do the same thing. Howdy. Well, here, I'm glad, like last night, oh my gosh, we had thunderstorms for hours. I was trying to tune in to a friend of mine doing a Zoom presentation, and it was my sister's birthday, and just kept losing power over and over and over, and very dramatic skies. So, oh, Wade's back at his home base. Okay. You got the rain too, Charisse? Yeah, I do. I know it's been dark all day. I've had sort of like mood lighting going. It's very dim. I enjoy it. It's actually good weather for research for me anyway. I couldn't get out there and do like yard work and get all distracted. Columbus, Ohio. I always forget where you're at exactly. Columbus. All right. Well, good to know. So it's raining, I guess, in a lot of parts of the world right now. Now, our guest today is Daniel Alan Jones, and he just messaged me that he is running a little late, so he isn't waiting in the green room yet. But, we always chat a little bit. I have some announcements anyway before I was going to bring him on. And so he will get here when he gets here. And, I'm going to see if we can keep him a little later if that happens, but we'll see. Because he sent me some really interesting photos. So we've got a lot of fun things to talk about. Wisconsin's rainy too. Lots of rain. We just got a rainy America right now. I don't know if Debbie's here. She's up in Canada, so we could weigh in on some of the other places in the world. Oh, hi, Nicole. Howdy. Thanks for showing up, everybody. So, yeah, we're going to have a good time because Daniel Alan Jones, now I should mention he has a website and he has a YouTube channel. So you can find it down. If someone wants to cut and paste it, they can into the chat. But it's called Vortexus. And so you're going to want to make sure you subscribe to that. There's a lot of ways to follow him all around the net. But I figure if you're watching this, you're into YouTube. Now, if you aren't sick of me already, you can get a little more of me. This Sunday, I'm going to be on a roundtable discussion for National Paranormal Day. Wow, I forgot that it's already been a year. Alan Smith, who has a show called Paranormal Now, I've been on it a couple times. It's a very fun show. He's through KGRA radio on the East Coast. And so I think this is going to air at midnight Eastern time, which is 11 for me here in Texas. So if you're a night owl and you just want something fun to listen to, I think it'll be visual too. I think it's going to be a StreamYard. I will share it on my Facebook page. I shared the link already on my newsletter. So if you're not on my newsletter, hey, sign up. Oh, you might hear a big thump or something. My husband's just walking in, so yeah, we'll see. Now, and I've got some other people. Well, Alan's going to be hosting it, but then we've got Heidi Hollis, Natalie Fowler, and underneath where it says set reminder, because this is a screen grab and I couldn't get a clean, there's Carol Carl. So it should be an interesting chat about all things paranormal. And if there are questions you have or topics you want to bring up, show up to the live stream. You can you got a lot of brains to pick there. So that should be interesting. Well, this is sweet of you, Wade. Thank you. I like that. Oh, yeah, that's right. You can do a reminder for it. Yeah, reminders. Oh, sometimes YouTube doesn't send me my reminders. Whatever. I live by Post-it notes and alarms, and I have a paper calendar for all my guests because that just works best for me. Old school. Now, coming up next week. Is this my next week, Beth? No, that's Daniel. He's still not in here yet. But luckily, save the day, I do have more to talk about. I have some photos of the week, and they come from a past guest of ours. I am talking about David Kravetz, who was on a few months ago. You might remember him. He did Quirky Cemeteries, and he writes really great travel books. But he's a wonderful photographer, and he keeps luring me. Like, I really want to visit him in Lexington, Kentucky, because there's a gorgeous garden cemetery there. I mean, look at this. This is inside a cemetery. They've got a huge path. I mean, look, there's like a 2-lane paved road through it. And right now, it is just explosion of blooms. It is a wonderful garden cemetery. I mean, here's some of the wonderful pictures he took. Look at all those headstones right by. I mean, there's a pond in this garden cemetery. And for those of you who don't know or haven't heard me say it before, America's first public parks were garden cemeteries. People would leave, who lived in this urban dwellers, they would go out to the cemetery on weekends to get their outdoor fix. And so in the 1800s, people would have carriage races. They would go hunting. They would set up an easel and paint in the garden cemetery. They'd have picnics. So this is a tradition. And then later they started having parks that didn't have people buried in them. And now we just have public parks. But that whole tradition started with these. And I think this must be one of them. Look at all these pictures. Oh, he's making me so envious. I wish I could. Yeah, David is a lot of fun. He's so talented. I mean, he speaks fluent Japanese. Here, I should just give you a better look at his pictures. Just a second here. I think that's dogwood. Correct me if I'm wrong. Some more gorgeous photos. Headstones galore with these really pretty, the colors are so vibrant. In fact, you might want to follow David on, you can find him online. I think if you just Google David Kravetz, you're going to get a lot of interesting info. Oh, good. Our guest just texted that he is almost here. So that's good because I've still got a few more photos to show you a few more things to talk about here. Look at that one. I mean, oh my gosh. This is why I say that cemeteries are like living libraries, because there are a lot of garden cemeteries that have achieved arboretum status. They have plants that are antique plants that you just can't find elsewhere. And here's one last one. I think that is really, really beautiful. So thanks to David for letting me just swipe a ton of photos. He's a pal. He told me I could take his photos anytime. It's kind of like our other friend, David Haben, who I've had on here, and I borrow his photos a lot because both of them take some really great cemetery photos. I know, I really want to go to Lexington. Have any of you guys been to Lexington, Kentucky? It seems like a really, really neat historic town. I've been getting more and more interested in it. Hopefully, I'll be able to do some road trips again soon. Here, I'll pop back into it. Oops. Maybe if I go like this. Oh, there we go. Yeah, very, very pretty. Now, every week I have a faux sponsor for our show. And I thought since we were going to touch on the topic of cryptids today, I would show this today. North Country is our sponsor, but it's actually, I chose it because it says Bigfoot Man or Beast is the show that they had. I don't know if this was a drive-in theater. That's kind of what I picture. But that's an ad from the Fort Worth Star Telegram back from 1972. And of course, even though I have a new sponsor every week, the real sponsors are my Patreon supporters. That's how I pay for StreamYard and other things. You guys are great. Bob, Connie, Ian, Scott, Ghost Cat, Jessica, Anne, Envy, Jay, Ken, Patty, Sarah, Julie, Margaret, Hugh, Mikhail, Naomi, Tim, Pete, Sarah, Rachel, and the other Tui, who it would be fun just to have her on the show sometime. I don't know. She seems really neat. And of course, I just think I don't meet a lot of Tuis, so her name really stood out to me. No relation to me. Now here's the part where I usually bring on the guest, but at this point, my guest has not quite arrived. Let me see if I can see if he's messaged me up here on Facebook. Okay, well, hopefully he will be there soon. Here we go. You've been through Lexington, never explored though. Yeah, I think it's a town that really might be worth exploring next time. I think from what David was telling me, they have a lot of murals all over town as well. Interesting murals, as opposed to not interesting ones. I would like to go to Kentucky for ghost hunting. Yeah. You know, there's a podcast that I've really gotten into that I listen to all of them. There's 2 episodes. I mean, 2 seasons, I think. Just want to say, well, whatever. There's a, it's kind of like Hellier, except it's just a podcast, and it's called Penny Royal, the Penny Royal. And I'd really like to get the guy who did it as a guest on here, because it's all about weirdness in Kentucky and how it all ties together with all sorts of strange, get a hold of that other Tui. I know I need to get a hold of that other Tui. That is for sure. I do indeed. But yeah, I don't know if any of you guys have watched. I keep saying, every time I talk about podcasts, I keep saying watch them. But what I mean is listen, obviously. It's called The Penny Royal. And I would say it's a really worthwhile, crazy, true history. And they connect a lot of dots. There's a lot of synchronicities in them, as Wade knows I love synchronicities. And strangeness running through it. And that's kind of the type of travel I like, is the strangeness. Oh, I hear we have Daniel coming. All right. And Cherise says, I bet there are a lot of ghosts in Kentucky. Okay, good. Well, I'm going to kind of move along and do the little intro, and then I shall bring Daniel in here with us. Oops, I don't need to zip too far along here. I'm spazzing out on my slides. All right. Well, let me go down here and I'll just kind of read his bio. So, Daniel Allen, I can't even say his name, Daniel Allen Jones. Let me bring it down to this so you can see, you can kind of look at him while we're talking. Daniel Allen Jones. Now, some of you guys already know him because I got a lot of comments on my Facebook post, and I had some replies to my newsletter this week with people saying, hey, I know him, he's a great guy, which is true. But there's a lot more to him. He is a ufologist, a mystery explorer, a paranormal investigator. I mean, among so many other things. We're going to talk about a lot of these things. He is the host and the producer for The Vortex. And as I told you guys earlier, you need to subscribe to his YouTube channel if you haven't already. I did paste the link earlier. It might be buried in comments. If you can't find it, just look in the show description. There's a whole bunch of ways to follow him online. But I figure if you're here, you must like YouTube. Now, he's been researching an unexplained phenomenon for over a decade. He's interviewed a lot of really interesting people. He's provided media coverage for several events, and he has a new book coming out. And remind me, guys, to ask him about it, because he sent me so many great photos. You know, we got a lot of bunny trails to hop down along the way. But he has a new book coming out called Myth.os, or Mythos, Mythical Operating System. And this book takes a closer look at his personal journey into the unknown and his quest to understand unreality, almost an unreality. What is wrong with me? He leads several UFO encrypted interest groups on Facebook. So like I said, check the links below. I tried to share all that stuff. And in addition, he's a talented drummer. He's a musician who teaches drums around the DFW area. So you're going to enjoy meeting him if you haven't met him already. And remind me too, when I bring him on, we didn't get to do a sound check, so let me know. Here we go. I'm going to bring you in to the stream. How are you doing today, Daniel?
Hey, Terry. Good to see you. Sorry about the wait. I'm glad that we pulled through, and I'm really looking forward to the show. Glad to be here. It's an honor, and hopefully you guys can see and hear me okay.
You sound good. I'll ask the audience. Sometimes everything sounds good to me and you, and then they'll be like, oh, there's an echo, or, you know, one person's loud, the other's not. That's the only thing I don't like about StreamYard, is it can fake you out. someone is checking out the Vortex channel for sure. Definitely, guys, you will all love it. You will indeed. All right. So though it takes up, there's a little bit of lag. So, but I appreciate you. Oh, now before I forget, do you have to leave like right at the top of the hour, or can we go over a little if?
Plenty of time. I'm not in any rush, so whatever you think is best.
Okay, good. I just, want to respect your time, but just in case, I thought I'd better make sure, because sometimes I don't realize that we've talked over a little bit. So, oh, you're so calm down, too. We're having fun already. Oh, I'm excited. I'm having a fun time. Okay, I'll try to go. Me calm down? Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, you sent me a whole bunch of great photos, and I'm just going to dive into them. I thought we would kind of work our way through them. And then before you go, I want to make sure we ask what you're up to, about your book. But, let's have a little show and tell here first.
Yeah, sounds good.
Oh, we're sounding good. Ha ha. Sounds great. Great sound. I was a little worried because I just had to update my operating system, and I thought, I bet it just changed everything around. I had everything just set, but okay, fingers crossed, not complaining.
Hey, as you may know, I've done a lot of AV tech, all the behind the scenes equipment stuff for years, alongside all the research and presenting, and so I know it's like Murphy's Law when it comes to this stuff. It's like you think you could prepare for whatever might happen, and of course the last thing you'd expect comes up, and then all this stuff happens. So we'll just try to smooth out any kinks. I'm glad to talk about anything we go through, pictures, everything else too. So let's just get right into it.
Oh, good, because I mean, last night and yesterday I was losing power over and over thanks to the thunderstorm. So I'm really grateful we got power now. So I'm not going to complain too much if there's a few little glitches. That's okay. Wade says, "Hello, Daniel. Nice to meet you." Yeah, you're going to love him. You are. All right. Well, now you have a legend here with a legend in this photo. I love this photo. Tell us all about it.
So for those who don't know the origin, I'm sure everyone who's watching this has at least seen this picture that the gentleman I'm standing next to and I are in front of. This is the Patterson Gimlin film, or at least it's a frame from a still image from the film. It's called frame 352. It's where the creature you're seeing is like that, right? It's
just the classic pose and everything.
Right. It's that iconic, just that picture of what we see and we call Bigfoot or Sasquatch that everyone knows about now. And I've actually got one here on my key ring, as you could see. It's oh, here we go. Yeah, right there.
Oh, here, I'll bring you up. Yeah. Oh, I love shoutout.
It's just one of those things that everyone's seen, at least in some form of, or whatever, stickers, media, all that kind of stuff, right? Well, this is kind of where that all came from. And the man I'm standing next to is Bob Gimlin. He was one of two people who were there to capture that footage that day. The person who did actually capture it on camera was Roger Patterson, and he passed away not too long after that. This is over 50 years old, from 1967 in Bluff Creek, California. It's in Northern California. And this is something that not a lot of people realize, but Bob and Roger went through a whole trial of events that day to go and at least attempt to track down some of these creatures that we call Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And they were on horseback, and they had this instance where they saw what we now refer to as Patty, and it walked along the ridge and continued up through this canyon. They basically tried to go after it and follow it. Bob found tracks. They went back to their camp, and it was a whole series of events from there that no one really, I think, widely knows about, that he has actually told in more recent times. I've interviewed him, which is, as you mentioned, one of the videos I have on my YouTube channel, The Vortex, which you can see. It's an extensive interview. It's about 40 minutes long, where we just dive right into all the things that happened that day, not just the sighting of this creature here, whatever this may be, but what happened to those guys. And they went through a whole series of events where they were at their campsite, and the horses were there in the trailer, and it started to rain. And so Bob went all the way back to where they saw this and casted the tracks, covered them up, went back, and by that time it was like a mudslide, and they had to try to get the trailer and the truck out, and they almost both died. It was a really crazy event.
Wow.
And so they made it out to tell of what apparently they saw back in 1967, which has become one of the most iconic, most examined and scrutinized, analyzed pieces of film footage in probably all of cinema history, next to the Zapruder film with JFK. So this
Yeah.
is something that I think everyone's probably seen something of in one form or another. And so I'm a big fan and student, you could say, of the study of these unknown animals, creatures, cryptids. The study of cryptozoology, I think, is really fascinating. So I do what I can to talk to some of these people who have had encounters, or they are witnesses to some strange animal or entity, whatever it is. And I think that through their accounts, we can learn a lot, because without the people who've had these experiences and without them coming forward and having the willingness and the courage, just basically the courage and willingness to come forward for a lot of
It
these
does
things,
take
how
courage,
we
doesn't it?
actually, find out a lot about this, because you can only
Mhm.
consider all the people like Bob and whoever else out there that have never shared anything. So I'm really interested in the study of what we refer to as Bigfoot, Sasquatch, other unknown creatures, cryptozoology. So a lot of my video interviews focus on that and other things as well. But this is a great opportunity to kind of bring it up, because he is sort of an iconic figure when it comes to Bigfoot and all of that information, because he's someone who people really look up to. He's a likable guy. And so I've talked to him, I've interviewed him a number of times on different things and what he thinks about what we should do when we're looking through different parts of nature that might harbor as of yet unidentified or undiscovered animals. And so I think his input is really important, because he kind of has a big part in our history in relation to our attempt to understand what some of these creatures could be.
Yeah. Oh, that is really neat. And does he still live in California?
He's up in Washington, and
Oh, okay.
with all the shutdown, he hasn't been as active, but he's still around, and so he has different events that he'll do. He has a ranch and rodeo that he helps manage, with a big sort of agricultural, um, you know,
Oh.
field of things going on. So he's really big into that and writing. He's
Mhm.
in his 80s. He's like almost 90 years old now, and he's still at it. So he likes to
Wow.
get out there. He's up in like Yakima, Washington, I think, and
Oh,
so
for sure. I grew up in Washington State primarily, and I still remember in sixth grade, this kid I had a crush on, he brought a Bigfoot cast to school, and it was show and tell. And he went first, and everyone else just put their stuff away, and like other teachers were coming in, and we were all looking at just it. He no that no one else wanted to look at anything else. He won show and tell that day, but
oh
that was when I first had really heard about Bigfoot. I was just so impressed.
well, on that note, give me one
Mhm.
moment. I'll show you something really cool.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, more show and tell. Let me bring you up. Yep. I know I've said it before, but I think it's kind of funny. Oh, you're back. That was fast.
All right, so let me get these back on for us here.
Mhm,
So, because you mentioned that, I'll actually show
mhm.
my cast here.
Oh, wow. Check
So you can
that
see,
out.
here's a
You are prepared.
a size, my
Oh,
shoe.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is like a size 9.5 shoe.
Mhm.
So this gives you an idea about the proportions. This is the Grays Harbor cast in Washington from 1982,
Okay.
and
And as you
so
probably know, the Bigfoot are bigger in Washington State than they are in Texas, which I find hilarious. Not
yeah,
everything's bigger in Texas.
yeah. When people think Bigfoot, they think the Pacific Northwest, Washington,
Yeah.
Oregon,
I
and
was surprised there
and
was
so
anything down here. I came down here, I'm like, what?
it's surprising, to
Mhm,
think that we do have something like this down in the South, and here in Texas. Texas actually has, and we've talked about a few things like this before, because
mhm.
Jefferson, Texas is renowned as one of the most, haunted locations in
Mhm.
America, but it's also the Bigfoot capital of Texas, which is really interesting
Those
because
piney woods.
right, East Texas
Yeah.
is a lot of
Mhm,
forested areas that people don't realize is actually a huge wooded area. So this actually came from Grays Harbor, Washington in
mm,
1982,
mhm.
and I take it a
Cool.
lot of these events over the years. I've got many signatures on the
Oh,
back
that's great.
from everybody. Bob's signed it. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, who's a professor of anatomy and anthropology. A bunch of our buddies, Nick Redfern, Lyle Blackburn, Ken Gerhardt, Craig Woolheater, Cliff Berkman, Bobo from Finding Bigfoot, just
Oh, wow.
everybody, as many people as I can that are involved in this and contributing
Yeah.
something meaningful, I think is important. So, I like to be able to take this around, and as it just shows
Yeah.
that whatever we're dealing with is something that is incredible, and that we need to do what we can to recognize, not just scientifically, but socially, because this impacts us as well. And I think that's a really important part of our understanding of these things. It's not just about these incredible discoveries, but it's about how it affects our understanding, kind of awareness we can have of these things, and where it takes us from there. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, that's really neat. We have someone asking, is that a Sasquatch? I mean, that's what we called it up in the Washington State.
And
Sasquatch.
The main words I think people use: Sasquatch, Bigfoot, wild man, hairy man, things like that. Boogers down here in the South.
It's different down here.
Boogers or something, So
swamp ape, I've heard down here.
Yeah, down in Florida, they have the Everglades where they have the reports of the skunk ape, swamp ape, things like that. So very interesting stuff.
Someone has a size 15 shoe, but still compared to that, I mean, that thing is wide.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, all right. Oh, okay. Well, cool. Let me get the slides back here. You got another nice one coming up here. I want to hear the story. I think we all want to know, what were you doing here? How much trouble did you get into?
So, for anyone that actually recognizes where this is, then you probably will know that you can get into some real trouble if you get past those signs.
Yeah, you don't want to tempt that.
So, right, this is off of Extraterrestrial Highway near Rachel, Nevada, and Groom Lake, also known as Area 51. So there I am at the back, what is known as the back gate, actually, where you have some buildings. So there very well could have been some people in there. Anyone can drive up those gravel roads up to that point. They'll monitor you, they'll watch you. That's fine.
It's their prerogative.
Yeah, I mean, it's a military installation. You don't want to do anything silly. The irony with this whole thing, though, is that this was in 2019.
Okay.
In March. And soon after, and it's so interesting to think about this, just within a few months after all of this is when the whole storm, Area 51.
Yeah. It started as a joke, right? And just kind of, I purely thought it was a joke when I heard about it. And then when I heard people are actually going to be going there, I was like, what?
Right. Well, I caught wind of it. I saw it on Facebook as an event page with it was like right under or around 100,000 people, which is still quite a bit. And then I was like, this is going to blow up. People don't realize that even statistically speaking, as soon as it hit the million person marker, even 1% of those people, if 1% of the amount of people who were just having fun, clicking, going, or interested in the page, if you even say half of 1%, that's still a few hundred, if not a few thousand people, because it went past 1 million.
Yeah,
and people showed up. I knew some people that were there. I was considering going, but I'm like, you know what? From what I understand, people getting stranded out there in the middle of nowhere, it's not a convenient place to go to. It's several.
Charisse has been there. One of our hell, you're gonna have to tell us about that sometime, Charisse.
And so this is a video, or still from a video that I did about it as well, where I tell about the whole reason anyone even knows about it is through stories that were purported and reported on by George Knapp, who was a reporter for Nevada's Las Vegas news channel, and he's also got a new, more recent site and show called Mystery Wire, which has been blowing up huge with a bunch of these recent stories with the government and military announcements. So he's actually been a big proponent. He's the main reason why many people even know about what we call as Area 51, which, for clarification purposes, a lot of people don't understand that the name Area 51 is simply a numeric plot of land, where in Nevada they divide up the state by different deeds or plots of land. That just happened to be Area 51. So Area 52 is literally the plot of land right next to it. Some people call that Papoose Lake because that has a facility on it as well. Groom Lake, which are dry lake beds, is where what we call Area 51. Or some people have told me its official name is Edwards Air Force Base Detachment 3.
Oh, interesting.
So,
my brother was the wing commander at Edwards Air Force Base for a while, so I always kind of try and get info out about him, but he'll just be like, oh, yeah,
There are people who have connections to this place, and it might not have anything to do with like aliens or UFOs, but it's something that I think it gives us an idea that there are facilities out there. There are bases, and some of the things that, again, similar to what we were talking about with, think about all the unknown Bob Gimlins who have had encounters out there. Same thing with this in a similar light. You could say, how many bases are there like this that we have no idea about? I mean, this is the world's most popular top secret base. It's like everyone knows that there is something. They don't really know what's going on, but it is a military installation. and you can't really just go walk on it. They will stop you. I saw the trucks, you know, they pull, and as I'm zooming in my camera, they're like pulling out a view up on the ridge. And there definitely are people there that are monitoring you the whole time. So
but
I just
that's the way it is with the military. But still, it's just fascinating because of the notoriety that this place has achieved, for sure.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot to what bases like this could hold for, you know, for years now that has never seen the light of day, and it makes us wonder that there could be a lot out there.
And Nitty Girl One is saying, "Did you get in?" No, I think you were wise, right? You stayed put.
That's about as close. I mean, I got up to the sign. I walked around by the, you know, those signs and got some pictures. But you're not. I mean, as soon as you step foot, they can shoot you. They can use this as on the sign.
And that's at other places too, as well. You know? I've been by other, you know, on big long road trips and gone by military installments, and they're like, you know, after this point we could shoot you. I mean, you don't want to take a wrong turn. You want to be literate and reading the signs, you know.
Right. You don't want to. I don't want to lose my life over attempting to, you know, just have some fun for no reason. But that's the idea. Is that, and that's a good comment, by the way, is that I've talked to people. I've interviewed Rick Doty, who a lot of people say different things about. He worked as a counterintelligence officer at Area 51 in the 80s. And I'd asked him, you know, in one of my interviews, I said, you know, are you aware of any underground levels? You know, he mentioned that there's an elevator that goes very far down, and he didn't have access to all the levels, but he knew that it went pretty extensively down into other levels. So I think that there are probably different things going on that you have to have a clearance, a need to know for, to even be aware of some of those things. It's all very, as government is, as the military industrial complex is, it's all very highly compartmentalized. So not everyone knows everything.
Yeah, there's that need to know thing. So you could be in the military and you only know this much anyway. Everything's that whole need to know, parsed out pieces. I think that that's something that people forget.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I mean, this is just another one of my videos I have on there. You can go see. I
everybody go
elaborate
check it out.
The history a little bit, and you know, my own experience. And of course, I had an alien there with me in my car, as you'll see at the.
Oh, okay, yeah, we got to see
as the video you know, goes on. But it's kind of yeah. If you watch the video, you'll see what I'm referring to there. It's kind of silly, but.
Well, I think we're all going to be binging your channel after this. No, you got to have fun. You probably had Ned with you, I'm guessing.
That's, yep.
We'll talk about Ned later, yeah. People. All right. Well, tell us about, you know, Luis Elizondo a bit. I'm sure some people know, but some people don't.
Sure.
Very interesting. And did you interview him as well?
Off the record, I'll just say that I didn't get an opportunity to do a camera, like on, you know, a video interview with him, but we talked for a while. I met with him and a few other buddies, including a friend of mine, Danny Silva, who has a big site now called Silver Record, and that's something that a lot of people are getting their information about, the recent releases of what the government's calling UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, which is their word of saying UFO. And so this guy here,
which I think is funny, because first there was flying saucer, and then I thought that they sort of moved to UFO, everyone did, to sort of have something that didn't sound as wacky or whatever. And now it seems like, once again, like, oh no, we don't like that term. I don't know. I don't know what the reality of it is, but doesn't it seem kind of funny that now that they have to change it up again?
Yeah, well, that's one of the points, is that they've tried to do something to get away from the sort of pop culture baggage and use it as a serious defensive term, because that's how they have to deal with things.
Yeah,
it would be naive
true
to think that they shouldn't look at this as a defensive thing. They are the military. They have to do what they can to make sure we have secure airspace, and understand that, you know, if these things are getting into our airspace and we can't do anything about them, it's not going to be an easy thing for them to just come outright say that to us and say, oh yeah, well, by the way, there have been things in the sky for, you know, decades, as long as we've been, like, you know, able to tell, but there's nothing we can do about it. Sorry. I don't know that we're ever really going to get anything along those lines, but what's here, this guy, his name is Luis Elizondo. He was the director for a group in the Pentagon that has been regarded more or less as the investigation group into UFOs. One of them. It's one of the publicized groups. There could be many more. There could be some still going. This group could still be going under different names. It was going as a different name before it became ATIP. ATIP stands for Advanced Aerial Threat Identification Program.
Which makes a lot of sense, yeah. You know, you break it down, it's like, wow, we need something like that.
So this is something that a lot of people are still, there's a lot of discrepancies about if this was a real program. People have asked the Pentagon if Lou had any involvement legitimately, and they've come out multiple times saying no, that he has never had any official capacity with this group, which could be a, you know, not necessarily that he didn't, but that just a way of saying that there was no official acknowledgement or record of this particular wording that we're asking about. It's also similar to how you might find a Freedom of Information Act request, FOIA request, have to be worded very specifically in order to get the pertinent information you're looking for.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to this and Luz Elizondo's involvement, just recently, former Senator of Nevada, Harry Reid, came out just the other day helping to corroborate Elizondo's involvement by saying,
oh, really?
I helped fund this group. This isn't just something that was made up for media, but that he actually helped to secure $22 million so that this organization or this department or branch, whatever it was in the Pentagon, could actually continue looking into this phenomenon.
And so
that's where
until like 2012 or something, and then
well, that's the idea, is
officially,
that we're told, right? We're told that it started this date and it ended this date. Both of those are probably incorrect, but it's a matter of nomenclature. We're talking about the name of something specific starting and ending, but we find that
they might have just changed the name the next week and it continued.
Exactly. That's how these things work. That's how these special access programs, or SAPs, or unacknowledged special access programs, that are really handling some exotic material and information, whether it could be crash material, debris, it could be bodies from occupants, very incredible exotic stuff. These things are not going to be acknowledged by government. They're embedded within and nested within these things so that they cannot have to really call to higher orders of power, and usually get through legal loopholes by doing this so that they can get funding or launder money into it somehow, into a way that they're not having to show any trace of things. So there's a lot to it. ATIP is an interesting group. Lou has been scrutinized, and just recently, like within the last few days, actually, former Senator Harry Reid has come out saying, yeah, he's the real deal. And I think, you know, having met him in person, I get that impression that he means well, he's sincere. I can't say that he's like, you know, that I would vouch for him. I don't know him personally, but I think that he has had an interesting involvement, and he's a notable person to say that, you know, we have been looking into this as a government and the military for many years, probably going back. And he just said, since before Roswell, that there are probably indicators that groups have been going out and collecting and retrieving debris. And of course, and I know too, you would be familiar with this. For those who aren't, you know, Roswell was 1947. There aren't a lot of notable cases of what we call UFOs or even UFO crashes before then. But we know of one for sure. That
definitely be getting to that.
You know, makes us wonder: are they talking about a possibility of something like this in a pre-aviation time frame? So yeah, Lou's an interesting guy. He's come out with a lot of stuff, and he's been on the news a lot. So people probably seen him, but he's someone to keep up with because there's a lot coming down the line.
And I just remembered, I've got
this. Oh, good. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say on May 20th, you know how I told everyone last week I'm taking part in this new site called the Observation Deck, and my virtual reality isn't working this week, so I'm not streaming it. But last week's show, I actually streamed in virtual reality in there as well. And Richard Dolan and Lou Elizondo, they're going to be doing a presentation in the Observation Deck on May 20th. So I will let people know as it comes along. It's a Thursday. So as you were saying that, I thought, oh, he said he's coming out with something. I'm like, I know that he's got an event coming up. Should be interesting. So we'll see.
Yes. So, and that's actually, and I'm aware of that event because my buddy Danny Silva will be on that sort of that round table with, with Richard Dolan, as well as a few other people, UFO Joe, who I've met before. And it's going to be a really interesting show to see because, again, there are a lot of detractors, there's stratification. You have people all over the spectrum of whether they believe or are loyal or think about these people this way or that way. Some people think what the government doing is a whole facade and that it's a false flag and it's going to be used as a catalyst to bring in, you know, getting arms into space and militarization of space, which I think is an important factor to consider. But I think there's more to it than that. You have people who consider that this whole thing, as we think of it being a threat, is nonsense, and that there's nothing to it, and this is all being used to try to promote fear, negativity, and all this. There's more to it than that. And I think that it's important to consider both or all sides, however many sides. But I try to talk to everyone who's got anything to do with this, because it's important to see what we can learn from all of these different perspectives. So
and also there are people who are very sincere, but who have been fed disinformation. There's, so I mean, just it's good to kind of collect all the pieces and see how they all jibe. Not just, oh, well, I'm not going to listen to this person's perspective.
Right. I think that, he's doing what he can from the position of having been in an official capacity to look into these things, or maybe like unofficial, but in the same sense of doing it from the government. So it just should show people that there shouldn't be a question about, do UFOs exist anymore? The phenomenon is something that has undoubtedly been acknowledged, not just by the government, but by authority figures all throughout, not just the U.S., but the world, people in government and military and law and authoritative positions, civilians, pilots, scientists. It's a big deal, and I think that it's important to consider what this could mean for us as we take just little steps at a time to get to the point of what people are calling disclosure. And if we look at what's going to happen in June, embedded within the COVID relief fund from President Trump through the last few years, we've got all these things coming out about the UFO program, but this summer we're finally supposed to have a big release. I don't know that it's going to be a big release, but we're supposed to see all these intelligence agencies bring forward what they know about UFOs and publicize it and make it transparent. I don't think it's all going to come out the way that people are hoping. It's probably going to be in phase. I mean, Lou has actually said it's probably not going to be a big reveal. It's probably going to be, here's a little bit to start with, and we can go from here. And maybe that'll be a stair step.
Well, even with
passage,
the Tic Tacs being acknowledged, the Tic Tac, sightings being acknowledged by the Navy, I thought there would be more excitement. From that. Am I wrong in that? I mean,
it's been one of the biggest news stories.
I thought it was
the
huge.
New York Times covered, and a lot of these mainstream media services and outlets, platforms have covered, is actually heavily based upon that Tic Tac UFO instance from 2004 with what's called the Nimitz Battle Group, which is part of the Navy. I've interviewed 4 of the Navy veterans who were part of that, who were witnesses, who were involved with that encounter, who were responsible for sending out the pilots and the F-18s to go and intercept or engage it, and to actually get the gun footage that we see all over the news and all that. So this is a real thing, and some people want to say that, it's drones, or it's not, it's unacknowledged secret technology. It could be something like that, but I think to suggest that the military, the U.S. Navy, and all of these different groups who have probably the best technology in the world to identify things, is not able to identify these things, should show us, should let us know that it's unlikely they can't do it. Then these guys on Twitter, social media, YouTube, armchair researchers, I'm sure everyone's trying to do what they can to figure this out, but we shouldn't be naive to just think that, they're probably just drones, and that the Navy's dumb and they can't figure it out. I mean, that's not the case at all. They have the most sophisticated technologies. If these people are trying to do what they can and can't figure it out, that should make us open our eyes a little bit. So I think there's a lot to it. The Tic Tac UFO interviews I've done are on my channel as well. They're really
it was super exciting to me. I guess what I meant was to the general populace, maybe my non-woo-woo friends, for lack of a better word. I was like, why am I not hearing? I was bringing it up to just the general populace. Still doesn't seem like it's sank in yet. Maybe
I think that
maybe it's starting to.
It made more aware now than ever. I think because of that big announcement at the end of 2017 about all of that, it's become much more popular and much more aware of a situation than probably ever before. So it is touching people and raising the awareness and the base of society for people that otherwise have no idea about any of this stuff. So at least there's that.
Yeah, that's true. Now we have a question here from Wayside Wade. You are familiar with the missile launch from the U.S. that lost communication and landed in Mexico, right? The Zona de Silencio.
Well, I'm familiar with the Zona de Silencio. I've never been there. It sounds like an interesting place. I'm always up to travel, check things out. But I've heard of this story a little bit. I'm not too well versed on it. I like to look into these types of things if I can even get out and try to explore and talk to people.
I know, I love that. Everybody, it's fun to follow you on Instagram, just everywhere, because you're kind of go all over the place. Just interjecting that.
I hear that this is an interesting location where you either there's some strange interference with cell phone reception and magnetic fields and really strange stuff that happens out in this area. Plenty of movies have been made about it to kind of show a more horror style situation, but it is a really bizarre place. Strange history. Sounds like this missile. It's something to look into. I'm not too familiar with it, but
I'm not familiar with it. I'll need to look into that now. Thanks, Wade. I always love it when people point out things that send me down new research rabbit holes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's good. All right, well, I'll allow us to move on here. I love this photo. I love skulls in general. Where was this?
So this is known as Max the Crystal Skull. It is allegedly one of the renowned mythical 13 ancient crystal skulls that are supposed to come together, that have some kind of prophecy. So along with all these other strange areas of UFOs and strange creatures and things like this, I'm fascinated with archaeology and archaeological anomalies and mysteries and history of course itself. But what we're looking at here is a skull that has come from South America. It has had several caretakers, and basically now is owned by Joanne Parks, who's in Houston. She brings us around to different places sometimes for people to come and do sessions. When I contacted her to do a session, it wasn't so I could so much spend time to meditate with the skull and get connected with it and tune in. I had a lot of people ask me, what did I feel? What did I sense from it? And my time there was not as such that I really got to have a deepened connection with it, because not just the environment I was in, but my intention was really just to try to make sure I could do something tangible. And so I did a video on it, and I was really trying to focus on just getting what I could, because it was very short time slot. Things to
I have a naive question for you. Here you have this cool. I love skulls. Like I said, this is a skull. It's crystal. How do you date something like that? Because the rock is a certain age, but how does one determine the date of when this was carved? What is the process there?
So that's an interesting question. In archaeology, you have a few different dating methods. You can do different chemical dating. With something like this, it would have to be different. You have what's called a lattice structure with certain crystals or mineral sediments that are why we have different crystals and stones. Typically, you would do a sediment dating with the layer of strata or earth that this or another object might be found within, that would give you a placement of when it was active. Not necessarily when it was made, but when it was in use or functional within a society. So it's hard to say when this was made. The whole idea is that there are many stories that are sort of anecdotal or it's just rhetoric, but the idea is that these are ancient. They could be tens of thousands of years old or older.
It's really cool looking.
This one isn't necessarily what we could say is a perfect skull. I've actually seen and looked at and photographed what's called the Mitchell Hedges skull as well, which actually is probably the most flawless looking one. Now some people say these are all fake and that they're made in modern times, which
they're still very cool looking.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then someone's done an amazing job either way. But to think that some of these skulls, the whole idea of the prophecy of these crystal skulls, which have been made into movies like Indiana Jones, is that they'll all come together and they all have information that humanity can access to help elevate to the next level of consciousness or evolutionary phase of our world and our people. So the whole idea behind this is they can provide some kind of spiritual wisdom or insight for us to go beyond some of the complications we're facing now. The interesting thing is that if we have a way to tap into this, people talk about using spiritual energy, using psychic energy. I don't deny that those things are part of our existence and that we utilize them in different ways to different degrees. Everyone has that maybe in different ways, but I think technologically speaking, if we're able to tap into it using some kind of scanning devices or the ability for AI or something to be able to get in and ascertain information, because we use crystal to put into microchips, silica, and all
Oh
this stuff
yeah.
that we use now has been
Watches.
known for a long time. And I think that to be able to store information this way has probably been known in some time. The skull itself was, I think, it's made, and again, this is from a video. You can see the skull has several different parts to it, which make it unusual in how it would have been crafted by conventional means. Because it's not just one stone; it's like
Oh
several
really?
crystals
Oh.
that were like, already together somehow that they managed to fashion into a skull somehow. And so it was found or utilized for a few hundred years, apparently, um, and I think Peruvian culture by shaman groups there as a way to kind of pay tribute to their ancestors who knew about it and used it more actively, and they were just trying to kind of use it respectfully in that light. And so you have these sort of ideas of passing down information and artifacts, and you lose knowledge, we lose information. So even from that point of view, they regarded it as like a relic, that it was sacred, and they didn't really even fully know what they were dealing with either. It was eventually passed along and made its way to Joanne Parks. I think there could be something to it.
Yeah, and Nicole's asking, was anything found with the skull? And then I'm also interested, how did Joanne Parks get a hold of it? I mean, it was passed down like through her family, or?
Well, she acquired it from one of the monks. He was actually I think like a Tibetan monk who was the handler of it after it was passed down. The shaman, from what I understand, in South America, they gave it to this guy because it was like, I guess, seen as being the new owner, not necessarily owner, but handler, like the person to take care of it, the caretaker, so to speak. And then it got to the point to where he said it's time that it's being transitioned to someone else and it's calling to you. So that's how Joanne got it. It wasn't necessarily like in her family, but she was a medical person and she acquired it. So she thought it was
neat. Yeah,
odd at first, but then it became more apparent to her that this was meaningful. So she's been taking it around for a while now, and she's in Houston, Texas.
Oh, very cool. Wow, that's not too far from me. Maybe I'll get a chance to see it one of these days. Oh, what do we have next here? Oh, yes.
Well, there I am with Giorgio, of course, and Ned. So Ned is the alien there. And so this is really just to demonstrate, I like to go around and meet different people. A lot of people say, and he's recognizable for mostly the meme aliens, right? He's the host and producer of Ancient Aliens. He's a really fun and eclectic and knowledgeable guy, regardless of what people say.
I've heard he's really nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that people, he's got a wide variety of views about him. He gets a bad rap sometimes because the whole show is about reducing everything to aliens, and that's not really the case. He's really knowledgeable on a lot of things, but he's also very open-minded, more than what you see in the show. We had many
TV, they edit people down quite a lot too. I've spoken to people like Greg Bishop, who said he's really careful what he says when he's being interviewed, because they'll just splice two sentences together, so you're saying like something that you didn't really plan to say.
Oh, exactly. And yeah, Greg's a great guy too. And I think that some of the things that media will do is try to make it sensational or hyped up for the purposes of ratings and views. But
it's already so interesting. They don't need to do that.
No, exactly. I always tell that to people. It's the content itself is already interesting enough. You don't have to do anything more. So Giorgio has been at this for a long time. I've been interested in this sort of work and ancient astronaut theory since before the show Ancient Aliens even came on, and they're in well over like 10 seasons now, and it's just a long-running show on the History Channel. Interesting guy. And so that's to demonstrate the sort of the dynamic of people that I like to be able to interact with and meet and talk to, because everyone has something that they can provide and contribute to this work, whether it's dealing with ancient history, modern sightings, interactions with entities, abductions, all this. So he's got some valuable input, I think, that should at least open our minds to the possibility that there's something else happening.
Yeah, and he seems like he's having fun, which I think some people forget in life. I think that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
Why pursue something passionately if it's not going to make you smile? All right, here we have something very local. When I first moved to Texas, I was so excited. I'm like, first off, like I said earlier, I didn't know there was any sort of like Bigfoot down here. And then when I heard, what? Lake Worth Monster right around? I mean, I'm not that far, 15 minits from there. So go ahead, take it away.
This is a weird story that I think is fun because it is relatable to us because we're local. It's like our local legends. We have Aurora, which we talked a little bit about, but with the
Oh,
Lake
we'll
Worth
talk about that more.
monster, it's something that not a lot of people really know a whole lot about, but have maybe heard something here and there all over the world. Actually, this is really crazy because this is a sighting of what we could say like a cryptid, an unknown creature, something that happened, some kind of mystery encounter of up to 30 to 40 people who were witnesses to something. Basically, this is all something that happened over 50 years ago as well. Now we had the 50th anniversary of
This
the
is 1969 or so.
69, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
this actually hit the local papers from Jim Mars. He was a writer for
Oh, yeah.
the Star Telegram in Fort Worth, and he wrote the story on this called "A Fishy Goat Man." Basically like harassing people over off Lovers Lane and places like that. He'd jump on their car and they'd flip out, and other people would see it. It all sort of culminated to the point to where a bunch of party goers were out having a good time, like 30 to 40 people, and they all look up on this bluff, and this thing's running back and forth. It's really big and hairy. Apparently, it stops and hurls a tire, and it's one of those things like the telephone game. I think stories continue to be embellished the more you share it to people.
Yeah, and more people want to be attached to it. Even like when I research historic events, if it's an exciting historic event, everyone wants to be attached to it somehow, so the witnesses grow. It's fun.
Yeah, and so before Jim passed away a few years ago, we would talk about this because he was fascinated not just with aliens or sort of more conspiratorial things, but he was fascinated with all kinds of bizarre creature stories and accounts of mystery encounters too. So he really liked the stuff. And so this is something that I think is personally interesting because, as we talked about, I'm really interested in Bigfoot, Sasquatch. So that we had something here like that in the Fort Worth area, this is my hometown.
Yeah.
Is incredible. And to think that it was isolated enough to at least maybe harbor one of these things at some point is really neat. So the whole idea is that it hurled this tire, and the paper says 500 feet, which is over, well over a football field. Didn't happen, of course. But like,
that's funny.
Some people saw it, and it went this far. It rolled, or whatever it had happened. It threw a tire. So it's kind of renowned for having hurled this
tire tossing.
And so every time we have the Monster Bash, which is their event there at the Fort Worth Nature Center, we have a tire tossing competition, and it's a lot of fun. We get together, and the city celebrates it. So that's why, as you can see, this was erected more recently, like a year ago almost. It's at the top, it says Greer Island, which is where the Lake Worth monster was reported to have been, its stomping grounds pretty much. And there, as you can see, the Fort Worth logo, and it talks about mythological wildlife. So I thought that's really cool that they actually,
that is. I know. I like it
when
local places embrace their local history and folklore and whatever else. Now, I'm curious because when I was looking up, when I first heard about this, and I was looking it up, there was these are the people, 6 terrified, like you were talking about, half man, half goat, and covered with fur and scales. Quite a visual. Hard to imagine. This is from the paper, the Fort Worth Star Telegram. Here's one of the main. This gal has a book that's out, which I can't afford. I saw it at Half Price Books, and it was like $200 or something for like a pamphlet, hand-drawn pamphlet. I'm like, maybe not. I mean, I might have sprung for even $50, but yeah, I'm not going to be able to get. Anyway, she was an eyewitness. But did you know there was a folk rock opera? Have you seen it?
So
I want to hear the music from that so bad.
So that was Sally Ann Clark, who wrote the book, who also just was sort of a self-described witness. Her book was also admittedly partly fictionalized for the purpose of just having a fun story, but it did chronicle a lot of the original history and sightings. Jim interviewed her, and as you know, we got to meet and be with Jim on occasion, and he was someone who went out of his way to investigate really difficult stuff that a lot of times people are not really wanting to get into. He was interested in this. He talked to the people, he talked to witnesses, he talked with her, and her book is pretty rare. I met with one of her granddaughters who got me a copy, and she's no longer alive, but that's one of the main people who are out there talking about this. And Jim actually, I think, did get to see a showing of that opera and had like a pamphlet.
I really want to hear the music from it. I think we need to burn a CD or put some files up. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, when he passed away, I inherited a lot of his collection, and that was one of the things as I was going through, I found. I was like, wow, no way, it's one of the Lake Worth monster like opera things. It was a program with all this stuff, so I thought that's so cool that because he's all these articles like this, he wrote these. This is why people even know about them, was really from Jim Mars. And I think that's super cool to think
That is.
you know, his breadth of work was so greater than a lot of people realize. So
Yeah.
hats off to you, Jim. Love you, buddy. And this is really cool because, you know, it's a lot of fun to see, you know, again, a local sort of urban legend, urban monster story right here in our area. And it's something that we'll have to go check out. It's just down the street from us. So
yes,
you know, we'll have to do that.
Definitely. Now someone's saying, oh wait, I'm always interested in Chupacabra, and I'm surprised there's no Bigfoot versus Chupacabra movie. Yeah, that sounds like something that there would be.
Yeah, you know, that's
I can see that Ray Harryhausen doing the claymation.
It's interesting. A lot of monster movies are making a comeback. You know, I think that it's something that has always been sort of on the fringe of pop culture, but is of interest to people in some way. So there's a lot of great material out there. A lot of my buddies have written on that stuff. I investigate accounts of mystery animals and unusual creatures here in the state of Texas, and I'm actually working on a publication specifically about that as well. So the Chupacabra is a big one.
Oh, good to know.
Here in Texas, our Chupacabra is different than the original Puerto Rican Chupacabra, which is El Chupacabras, which is actually a different cryptid or creature.
Really? I didn't realize.
Altogether. The ones in Texas we call blue dogs because they're canids. They're not like bipedal lizard-like with spines and you know, little.
Wow, I didn't realize they were so different. I thought they were all kind of dog-like everywhere. Oh, so the Puerto Rican one and the Texas one are quite different. Wow. Now I'm very curious. Where is this?
So this kind of ties back into more of the fascination I have with archaeology and out of place artifacts, parts, and just anomalous historical instances or events, or just different archaeological anomalies in general. This is the Los Lunas Mystery Stone of Los Lunas, New Mexico.
Oh, New Mexico. So, okay.
This is south, about 30 minutes south of Albuquerque. It's really not super hidden. I knew about this for years. As a story of just this weird rock I thought was like a rock, you know, strange writing on it, somewhere out in the desert, just kind of inaccessible, just way out there, as kind of the impression I got was about it. So I managed to do some super hardcore research into this to try to figure out and locate where this was. And I find out it's a big stone, as you can see here. It's something that is pretty sizable.
And it's still outside. It isn't like in a museum or anything.
Oh, no,
it's like,
There's very little academic scrutiny on this whatsoever, which I'm surprised of, because even in the event that this is more modern, or even like a hoax or something, which I don't think it's necessarily a hoax. I just think that it's the probability of it being more modern is there, but the idea is that what you see on the stone is lines of writing, an inscription. It's a form of writing which we could refer to as Paleo-Hebrew, which is like an Hebrew writing, like biblical, almost like Greek. So if you've heard of the alphabet, you know, the A, or the Aleph, it's like an A but sideways. And we read this form of writing from right to left rather than from left to right. And when we do that, it gives us an idea about what is on the stone. And people have deciphered that it's an abbreviation of the 10 Commandments.
Oh, really?
That what this implies is that there could have been a transoceanic group of Hebrew people from about 2,500 to 2,000 years ago who made their way to the Americas, settled somewhere in New Mexico, or what we call New Mexico. And made a dwelling, a defensive outpost above this place called Hidden Mountain, or what we call the local native Indians, the Isleta Indians, called the Cliff of Strange Writings, because they knew of this place for
a long
the last
time.
200 to 300 to 400 years. They said that this place was here. So even if people did that in more modern times, to have even had the knowledge to know and to write Paleo-Hebrew is still odd. So people think that this could imply that not only were there ancient Hebrew people here in America 2,000 to 2,500 years ago, but many of the native tribes could be descendants, because their rites, their culture, their languages, all of these things are actually very similar and have things that we could relate. I think that there's something to it, and I'm always interested in these out-of-place artifacts, things that don't necessarily seem to fit in with the currently accepted conventional paradigm of the situation. So there could be something about our history that we're missing out on, that, you know, big academic institutions haven't acknowledged. And I think this is a good example of something right here. I mean, I managed to find my way to it
Yeah.
with little information on YouTube. If someone like me can do this, there's got to be someone else. I mean, people know about this. You can see there's graffiti, and on top of the mountain,
I know it needs to be protected before.
and someone scratched off the top one. The top commandment, as it were, has been totally like scratched out. And someone like, it looks like it's been power washed. You see the darkness of the stone besides the face. Someone came there in more recent times and like power washed it all so you can actually read it. So someone found this in more modern times and was like, hey, there's something here.
And they were trying to figure it out.
And on top, if you continue up, it's not an enormous mountain, but it's like, it's pretty sizable. You can make your way up in a few minutes. When you do, it's very apparent that there are stone structures that are built up. They've probably been built up from more ancient structures, and there are astronomical markers, like more writings, more symbols, and petroglyphs up on the top. And if you look at, like, on my Facebook page, on my cover photo, I'm standing up on that cliff, like looking out over the landscape. That's on top of this mountain. And so it's an interesting place. So I definitely recommend, and my video on this one is not out yet, but I'm going to put it. It's pretty neat.
Well, speaking of interesting rocks, have you seen this one up in Decatur at the Wise County Historic Museum? I've got some, hopefully some better. So it says, do you know what these symbols mean? Could it have been left by the Indians? Rock found in a bed north of Decatur, yada, yada. And it's at the Wise County Historic Museum. And like, it's definitely got some carvings in it. I don't know, maybe someone was trying to give directions, or I just found it really interesting. And I just wondered if you'd seen it, since it's our neck of the woods. And I was totally shocked to see it. I was there just wandering through, and it just kind of as an aside, just.
Wow. I have heard a little bit of this. I've never been see it though, so
it's worth going to.
Yeah, like I was mentioning, I love all these different stories of weird things here in Texas, from creatures to UFOs and things like that, but also strange archaeological findings. So when we talk about all of these things that don't fit in, this is a good example. It makes us wonder what this was for, what it meant for the people who were around there that time, and what it could have been interpreted as by people later on. Because sometimes we try to understand things through what we look at in our culture, and we don't get the full picture, but we try to estimate what it could have been like for them, in different periods of time. So
I think that's a big challenge when looking at anything, is to take off the lens of the 2021 and try and put on the lens of what era, that context, not project to it. I mean, it's super challenging.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought that was kind of neat. I just had to ask you about that. I was like, oh, I wonder if you've seen this, because it's not as impressive as what you shared, but still, it's an interesting mystery in our neck of the woods. There's the Marfa lights. I'm so jealous. I got to tell you, this is when my brother, he was like a test pilot for the Air Force, and once I asked him, if you weren't a test pilot, what would you do with your life? And he said, I would explore anomalous mysteries in the world, such as the Marfa lights. Number one, I'd never heard of the Marfa lights. And number two, I'd never heard the word anomalous before. So that's like stayed in my head ever since. I can't believe I've been in Texas 10 years and I haven't gone down to see them. Just so tell us about them.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, it's really kind of out of the way, unless you're going to like the McDonald's Observatory,
which I want to go to as well,
or something. You really have to try to stop by when you're already like in the area, unless you just like deliberately make the trip just to go toward Marfa. Now, they do have an observation deck that's a 24-hour rest stop. So you can park there, you can stay there overnight. They have restrooms, and the deck is like 4 to 5 feet above ground level, so that you can see way out into the desert, into what we call Mitchell Flat, where the lights are observed, and have been since at least the first recording was in 1883 by a guy named Robert Ellison, who thought that they were like Apache ghost or campfires or ghost lights or something, and they would ride out there to go see. And these things have been sighted before there were highways or cars. So the official scientific explanation from the experiments and tests that have been done, they show that the only demonstrable things that can give us a repeating answer are car lights, because we know that car lights can be driven down the roads.
And there are areas where the mystery lights really are caused by car lights, but this has been around for a long time. Yes.
Well, the idea is, and I think this is, there's a lot more. I'm making a pretty simple statement.
Well, yeah, I know where.
if this is something that we could chalk up to just car lights and heat, mirage, refraction, why aren't we seeing this in dozens of other places in the American Southwest that
Good
are just
point.
the same, so sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But to think that this has been an ongoing, active, consistent phenomenon for over a century should let us understand that it's worth looking into, because you could go out there tonight or any night this week, this month, this year, and more than likely and just, you're throwing a dart onto the board on whatever day of the calendar, you could probably see the lights. So I think that there's something to it. I think we need to keep looking to it. One of the most, and so you go to the city and you go to the visitor center, people there, they'll talk to you, but there's not really like an official person that they relegate to as an expert or something to give you
the docent.
I think that it's brought in a lot of attention. People from all over. I've been there several times to see the lights myself. They dance around. They're orb-like, and I've seen them in
what
colors
color?
of like red, and then like the color of a light bulb, like yellowish white. Some people say there are other colors, but I've zoomed in and recorded them. Sometimes they'll merge into two or back into one, and one will move, and then another will appear, and they'll do the exact same thing, moving very sporadically, non-linear. It's not like a motion.
How far away do they seem like to your mind when you're sitting at the on the horizon? Or?
Well, when they're not up in the sky, but they're out in the distance, and the impression it gives you, to me, it's really exciting. So I had this idea, like, I just want to run and go jump the fence and run out there and go see them, because they look tangible. They look like they're just down there.
Send a drone over.
Well, that's actually a really important part of, I think, something that could be done in an investigation is we need to sort of triangulate, send a drone out, look down. There's a lot. So I think there's well worth enough to check in. But the idea that they're right there is probably misleading, because during the daytime, you're looking out there, it's miles out there in the desert.
Oh, I see. So they could be...
You'd be like trudging through the brush and cactus and rattlesnakes, thinking like, oh, they're just right there. They're probably... I mean, it's hard to give you
like chasing a rainbow, essentially. I mean, that could be,
they could seem like they're as big as basketballs, or they're the size of a car, because you can see them illuminating the ground below. When they move around, there's a glow that you can see that they're hovering above the ground. They're not like way up there in the sky. So when you're looking,
let's take Greg Bishop with us and go there, because he can fly drones. And then we'll do
I think that would be great. And looking at it through night vision too, and there's a lot out there. So with something that's an ongoing mystery, it's an aerial, it's an unexplained aerial phenomenon. It's a UFO, but it's not a flying saucer. I mean, is it a form of intelligence? I don't know. Maybe. Is it interactive? Is it a natural geological phenomenon? These are all questions that we need to look into as someone investigating and researching, that we have to ask, because
definitely.
I think that one of the fun stories, I'll make this real brief, is that one of the people at the visitor center that I talked to about this said there was a guy who called up. He was going to launch an investigation with a team, and he was like, I'm pretty sure I know what they are, but I can't tell anybody. And he was really urgent and kind of paranoid about it. And he was like, okay, I'll tell you, but don't tell anyone else. I think I figured it out. What we're probably dealing with is our rope-in. And for anyone who doesn't know what rope-in are, out at New Guinea, like Papua New Guinea, way over on the other side of the world, where there are sort of alleged many different unknown animal species, rope-in are supposed to be pteranodons or pterosaurs or a pterodactyl that is bioluminescent, that can glow to attract prey. Glowing pterodactyls. So to me, this is one of the funnest theories that I think there are about the Marfa lights. I don't think that that's what they are at all, but I think that's one of the coolest things.
But it really is fun. That's a fun thought.
To think that they're just glowing pterodactyls out in the deserts of West Texas. So the lady I was talking to was like, my family has lived here forever, and I think we'd know if we had pterodactyls.
We probably,
But on that note, I don't think that's what they are, and it would be weird to think that they could live out there for this long unnoticed. But there are reports of thunderbirds, of pterodactyl type sightings, or things that seem to be indicative of that down in the Rio Grande Valley and in the valley down there near the border, Brownsville, Raymondville. People have in the 70s definitely reported sightings of pterodactyls, which is bizarre. So there's something to that. But this phenomenon, the Marfa lights, they're orb-like. They're red, they're white. The footage I got shows that maybe they're changing colors. There's sort of a core inside of the orb, and I don't know that we should go up to it and try to get close because it could be potentially dangerous or threatening. I don't know.
Yeah, I like the drone idea. I'll bug
as
Greg
exciting
about
as
that.
they are, we need to be careful about stuff like this because
Definitely. Oh yeah, people should be cautious with all this stuff.
Yeah.
No, I love this photo. I've just got this and then the Aurora alien, so I know we're kind of going over here, but
sure. Yeah,
so fun.
And just to kind of give a brief cap on this one, these are all from videos too. So this one is from the location, one of the locations of the Travis Walton experience or incident from near Snowflake, Arizona in 1977, where he had his abduction experience, was taken aboard some kind of craft, had interactions with these little gray entities, and then of course was taken back in a different location, found this phone booth, called his brother. He had been missing for 5 days, and the rest, is history. It's been made into the movie Fire in the Sky. So one of the other pictures that goes along with this series is me at the actual location where he was taken.
Oh, really? Oh,
where
I
they
missed
saw
that.
what they call a fire in the sky. They thought it was something burning up there. They thought it was a tree fire or something burning, and they realized it was this enormous oval-shaped, disc-shaped ship or whatever it was, something that Travis was so mesmerized by. He ran out and it zapped him, and he got blown back. They thought he died, so they drove off. They were being accused of having killed him until he came back. So this is the phone booth. The situation was he called, and they found out he was alive. And so Travis is a really sincere guy. Something happened to him, I think.
He is. You brought him over to Texas.
Yeah.
I got to meet him, and you put together this really great in 2016 event in Aurora, Texas, and it was like one of the most hoppinest events I've been to.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm so glad that you got to be a part of that because I don't know.
Me too.
Next year is the 125th anniversary, and they've really built up the whole thing. Now, this is really important because we had that event to commemorate the incident, and we had Jim there, Travis was there, you, myself, and then Nick Redfern was there as well, and then Noe Torres. A lot of people showed up, and it was just a huge success. I was thinking maybe 100 people might show up at the most. They were at full capacity. It was like 400 something people showed up.
It was crazy. I didn't even get a chance to go out on the tour and stuff because I was just nonstop at my table talking to people. That was like one of the most hectic events I've been at. And here is in a little town of Aurora, which has like a population of 400 or something. I didn't expect it. I was like, wow, you really tapped into something there. People loved it.
Well, so now they have they have a new city monument since
here I'll show you.
And yeah, let's get into this because this is an important part of what the city's doing to help celebrate it, to embrace this sort of iconography of the disc ship and the alien.
Yeah, because even when I first moved here and tried to talk to people in Aurora about it in the area, people really were like, nah, they're not too interested in it. And now look at their town, the town's emblem. If you go to their website, it says a legendary Western town, and they've got this little crash disc and the windmill. And now they've got this like a place there that I haven't been to the barbecue place. Have you?
So yeah, okay. So that's what
tell us where.
They have a whole thing they're calling now right next to this, called the Party Patio. It's Area 114 because it's off Highway 114, and they have a new stylized logo. It's very Texan, very alien. And they have Martian margaritas. They have smoking windmill barbecue because it crashed into a windmill.
Yeah.
And it's they have a stage for live music. They have a huge covering now. They've had
oh my gosh, they need to the live music. They need to have the Lake Worth Monster. Someone needs to do covers of the Lake Worth Monster songs. Okay, I'll play. You drum. We can put it. I play some instruments. We could put a band together.
Yeah. Well, that's great because they have a platform now because they never really had anything. We did that event in that venue. That's not really, that's like the only thing they had other than a big church there. And they were like, no way, we don't want to do this at a church. But
yeah,
now they actually have a place that they can hold events and talk to people about things. And so this is really cool to see because it's still an ongoing thing. They're adding little by little. So by next April, for the 125th anniversary, not only am I hoping to be able to have my publication about Aurora, about the history.
I know. I hope to have my book out about my version of it.
You've got this as well. This is awesome because now we can get together and tell people about this. And so I know you've been working on the airship publication for a while, and the Aurora story is an ongoing
It's
one.
hard to quit,
Now,
like with research sometimes. I'm sure you can relate. You're just like, no, just a little more, just a little more.
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is that they're going to continue to have stuff, you know, with this new party patio and ongoing development, even through next year. So I'm talking to some of the people. I'm saying, hey, what can we expect? What can I put in here that by next year will be like relevant, and that, you know, we can know what to expect, that we can put in. And so there's a lot happening. I think it would be a lot of fun for the 125th anniversary to get together to do another commemorative event of some kind, to maybe, you know, be able to have.
And I just realized you should give people a brief overview of what we're talking about, because some people might not be familiar with this who are watching.
Right.
What I'll go back up here with you.
Aurora is a little western town that doesn't really, you know, get acknowledged very much because people don't know about it. But if you do, you know, it has its place in history with UFOs and aliens and like that. So in 1897, during the Great Airship Mystery, with all these other sightings all over the place, this one is a little bit interesting because it stands out. Not only do you have a strange sighting of an object in the sky, but you have something that not only crashed, but maybe a body as well. Some metallic cylindrical object came down from the south and crashed into a windmill of Judge Proctor's property. The windmill was connected to a well house. It all worked in conjunction with each other. There was a big explosion and debris was scattered everywhere, a bunch of metallic material, and a lot of that was gathered apparently. And this is all alleged in the Dallas Morning News. And so with all that debris being taken and then some of it being put down the well, they found the remains of what seemed to be a body. The newspaper also alleges that enough of the body was gathered, you know, enough of these remains of it were gathered to determine that it was not
of this world. Yeah, I love that.
So, you know, it makes us wonder, what does that really mean? And, you know, they say it was badly.
Here's the original, the cool, or one of them.
Well, you know,
the second one.
We have shreds of ideas of what this story could imply, and it makes us wonder, was it a full body? Was it pieces of something all just thrown into a small child-sized grave, paraded down to the local cemetery and buried and given a, you know, formal Christian burial, where I think, you know,
which is what you do. I researched historic graves, and that is just what you did back then. If a stranger dies in your town, you bury it. The next day was Easter. I mean, to us now, maybe it seems weird, but back then that was the nicest thing you could do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to consider that they were willing, if this is all what actually happened, if they were willing to bury it, then it probably wasn't demonized. If they thought it was evil, they probably wouldn't have been like, oh, let's just bring him down to the cemetery. I think they thought it was enough to be recognized like a person, to say this person or whatever this was needs to be honored and respected as one of us. So it says something. And I think that it also should give us an idea that as our science continues to explore the possibilities of extraterrestrial life, culture, civilizations, physiology, biology, all these things, genetics, we're going to open up this field of what we call xenology in a way that's going to really embrace known cases, alleged cases, and things that can give us insight about what we might be able to understand what's going on out there that is here. Let's say if this is all actually what happened, that something, you know, from another world came and crashed for whatever reason, and there is an alien body in this grave. Sure, someone could try to dig it up and grab it and be like, we've got it. It's probably not a good idea.
The Cemetery Association won't allow it, for one thing.
That's
some people have
question.
Yeah, people ask that a lot.
Yeah,
and there's also, I've heard, like, oh, you have to notify next of kin. I've heard that too, but I mean, that's a bit cheeky.
I joke because that's actually true. In Texas, you have to have the next of kin to exhume a body. I jokingly say that they came about 50 years too late in a state over in New Mexico. So, which is wrong.
There you go.
But,
yeah.
So yeah, their timing was a little off when they came through their warp drive, you know. So anyway, when we deal with this idea that there could be something down there, the History Channel came. They did ground penetrating radar. They found that there is some kind of small grave underground where the new headstone is, which, you know, makes us wonder, are there non-invasive ways?
Someone stole this in 2012 or something.
Right, yeah.
Bummer. I got that.
Not just like able to be picked up. Yeah, here it is. It's hard to see because the perspective, but that's a big stone. No one's going to pick up with us.
Yeah.
When I was there with Greg Bishop and Jim and a bunch of other people who came to come check it out.
And Rojan Razor Wire, I've heard. Didn't you guys all try and pick it up?
Yeah. Well, and I should specify because this is something also the city admin Tony Wheeler, Dr. Tony Wheeler, who you met and you know as well.
Yeah.
We were talking about how when the construction workers brought it down, they didn't really put it in the right spot, and that
I
we were just
noticed.
kind of waiting to see what we could do. And I said, hey, we've got a dozen or more of us here. Let's all just move it over a few feet, and we did. It took a few of us. We moved it over, so no one's going to come and just handle that thing and pick it up and haul it off. I think you'd have to really. I mean, and the other interesting thing is that there is a reward for the original headstone or the whereabouts or any information, which I don't think anything is going to come from that. But just the idea that someone, a lawyer from Dallas, is offering a reward for it.
Yeah.
That's an ongoing part of this story that I think is so fascinating that it's still relevant even after a century. So if we can continue to implore the scientific and archaeological domain to use non-invasive techniques to scan the ground, to do something.
And we're getting more and more of those, yeah.
And so we don't have to go with shovels and dig it up and potentially contaminate or find it to be, because and realistically, let's say we just dug it up and we pulled it up and we said it's here, we can settle it. Here's Ned, and then we say, oh no, he's full of infectious diseases that'll.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want that.
So that's a very important, serious part of our understanding of interactions with other life forms, is that we have to be careful that we don't contaminate things, or they don't contaminate us, or that we're not going to completely annihilate some species intentionally or not, because of a misunderstanding of chemistry and chemical makeup and virology and all of this stuff. So I think it's important to see how we can learn using non-invasive techniques that are really like up and coming methods in archaeology for detection. So that's been a big part of my focus in archaeology is xenoarchaeology, and in utilizing things to detect signals, patterns, ratios, geometry, genetic material, all of this stuff for the possibility of extraterrestrial life or civilizations, active or not. This is going to be a real part that's coming out of the fringe of science fiction, where it's been relegated into Hollywood and games and movies all these years, to being a real scientific field that we can have people, zoologists, anthropologists, archaeologists, and biologists who are actually interested in these things in a real way, explore it through the field of xenology, and see how we can learn what's possible with life out there in the rest of the universe beyond humanity.
Yeah. Wow. Well, now everybody, I got to tell you, we've kept him a little over. Well, actually, we've kept you a lot over the hour. So time flies. If you've got questions for Daniel, you better ask him now. Now, Daniel, I want to give you a chance to tell us, what you're excited about right now, what events you might have coming up, where we can find you. What do you want to tell us before you go? If you want to tell us about your book as well, but just now's the time.
Right. I'll in a brief summation, I'll just say I'm really looking probably most forward to the publication of my book, Mythos, which, as you said earlier, is going to be sort of an expose of my jumping into this journey of
and I hope we can have you back. I'm interjecting to talk about that.
Okay,
good.
Of course. I'd be glad to. No, that's going to be something that I'm really looking forward to by this summer. Hopefully, that's going to talk about all the different areas that I've been fascinated with, the people I've interviewed, the places I've gone to, where science is taking us with new technology, engineering capabilities, the future of these things, of integrating AI, and what's going to happen with how we understand how to investigate things in the future, how technology is going to be a part of that, and what we're going to learn, the consequences probably, and benefits, and all this stuff that's going to really help us explore mysteries in the future and what it could mean for us as a society. And that's really a big part of how we understand information, how we interpret things, and looking through our own lens of perception. And that's essentially what Mythos is. And I love to be able to talk with people about this, you and everyone else that are friends. So if we don't get time to do it all today in our show, we can definitely do it somehow, like through social media, which I'm on, or my email is fine too.
And I have a lot of information in the description box, so you guys got to follow him. Binge. We all need to go binge watch your YouTube channel. But just connect.
Yeah, for all the videos I have on the channel, there are twice as many or more that aren't published yet. So I'm really trying to work away getting that out online. There are a lot of events, or at least a lot more than last year, that I'll be involved with here in the state and beyond, for different subjects, and my capacity will be different things. But I'm glad to be able to connect with people at live gatherings again. And I
Yeah,
really
that is
think
exciting.
that the community aspect of this is really great because it helps us to congregate, to explore things together,
And bounce
and yeah,
ideas off each other. It's so
yeah.
helpful, isn't it?
So that's something that I like to do. And for anyone that knows of stuff coming up, that has stories, I love accounts. I love hearing about reports of things historically or more recently. Feel free to jump onto the pages: Texas UFO Network, Texas Cryptozoology Network, the Vortex, and let me know what you think, and we can talk about different things too, because that's really what I like to do, is get connected with people, network, see what's going on, and see what we can do to work together to find out about this stuff. And so yeah, if we have any time for questions, I'll be glad to
Yeah,
do
if anyone has
cover it.
questions. And I should let everyone know that, do I have it here? Our guest next week is going to be Jeff Morrison. And you see he's got a gargoyle right next to him. He has this massive book, which I don't have in front of me, all the gargoyles and grotesques in the city of Detroit. And that I was amazed at how many there are. It's gorgeous, like a coffee table book, but he is really interesting. I think this will be a lot of fun. I met him. He bought my cemetery symbols book because there's a little overlap there, and we've been emailing back and forth, and I was so happy when he said he'd be on the show. So tune into that next week. Now, if anyone has some questions Cherie says your book sounds interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be really interesting. We'll just have to have him back. I can't believe how the time flew. It really, really did with you.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to cut people off. Well, if you think of questions that we didn't get to, you can always, of course, go to any of the links that I have down below for Daniel.
Yeah, and like I said, all the videos are on the YouTube channel, The Vortex. If you have trouble searching them, just type in my name or find me on Facebook, or my email is just my name @hotmail.com. And I'm glad to interact and just share and do what I can to stay connected. So
yeah, that's one thing I appreciate. I appreciate how accessible you are. So that's really nice. And and I really thank you for being on this show. This was a lot of fun. I loved all the things you showed. This was really great show and tell. I kind of think of my show as like a glorified show and tell because it's very visual. People can bring things. I want to thank everybody who watched, and of course, anybody watching the replays. Like I said, I had a blast and a half. Everybody take care. Hope to see you next week or in between, maybe on when we're not binging Daniel's channels. Maybe I'll bump into you online. So take care, everyone. Thank you. Good night.
thanks again.